Pokemon can kill you. Don't take my word for it, just listen to this guy.
That's Pokemon. Son, I found out that Pokemon means pocket monster. But why should they carry these monsters in their pocket? Pokemon world is a world of the demonic. There was even a couple of reports where children had been stabbed by other children over Pokemon cards. Our kids are going out in gangs on the streets, and they're so used to killing each other in their fantasy games and on their video screens and blowing each other away and blowing each other up, that when they walk down the streets and they pull out their .45 and they pump some friend full of bullets, they kind of think in the back of their mind, well, they're just gonna, we'll turn off the machine and they'll get up and they'll be there tomorrow and I'll shoot them again.
And now, as crazy as this guy might sound, there actually has been a history of the connection between Pokemon and death. A lot of it is just rooted in creepypastas, but there actually have been some times where Pokemon actually killed people. And now, to help explain the connection between Pokemon and death, I brought in my pal Izzy Nobre. Take it away, Izzy.
Have you guys ever heard of the Lavender Town Syndrome? This is how the story goes. Basically, back in the 90s, something like 100 kids committed suicide because of Pokemon, the original Pokemon game. Or rather, games. There were two of them, Pokemon Blue and Red. The story goes that after the kids got to Lavender Town, the music that played in the background of the song drove them to commit suicide. And then people came up with all these explanations about binaural beats or whatever else.
Now, if you're not sure what Izzy means by binaural beats, there's this idea of a kind of a digital drug. There's a theory that certain combinations of sounds will cause your body to react in a way that's very similar to getting high from drugs. This concept is very closely connected to ASMR, and some people say they can feel it while others say that they can't.
That could explain the idea of sounds triggering such an intense physical response in someone that it would cause them to kill themselves, let alone kids. I remember reading about this story some 10 years ago or even more, and the internet being a different place back then, and of course we were all, I guess, a little bit more naive when you're young. I actually thought that this was a real thing. And probably the reason why I thought this is because it wasn't the first time I heard about Pokemon harming kids. Dano Shenji Porygon, the 38th episode of the first season of the TV show, was infamous because upon its airing, a bunch of kids had seizures right in front of the television sets. The show had a bunch of, that episode specifically, had a bunch of flashing lights and special effects that just triggered seizures in a bunch of kids who were prone to that, who I assume at least a good handful of them had no idea they even had that condition until the show, well, I guess now you know, kid. And that wasn't even the only instance when the Pokemon franchise was connected to kids getting messed up. Back in the late 1990s, Pokemon and Burger King had this partnership where, to celebrate the release of the first movie in 1999, whatever the Happy Meal equivalent at Burger King is, they were giving out Pokemon toys. There were 57 of them, if I'm not mistaken. I actually happened to be in the United States back in that year, and I collected a good chunk of them. Well, the little containers, the little Pokeball containers they came in, were later deemed a choking hazard, and in fact at least 2 kids suffocated to death because of this little Pokeball. So they had to conduct a recall of all those toys, the most expensive by some accounts recall in history. So even though we now know that the Lavender Town Syndrome, it really didn't happen, it's kind of easy to see why in a lot of our collective consciousness it was like, oh, Pokemon is killing kids? Yeah, I can see that happen. They've done that a couple of times. It says something about how effective the psychological horror of Lavender Town was. We're talking about the original Game Boy. It was an 8-bit monochromatic video game console, and still that music was so unnerving. And not just the music, but the whole idea. Like up until Lavender Town, Pokemon is this cheery adventure. You're a little kid and you're off to see the world, battling with these little monsters, and you're collecting them, you're trading them, you're bumping into other trainers. There's a bit of a humor in the series as well. Then all of a sudden the tone changes completely as you enter a haunted town where this is playing in the background. So it's unsettling, right? I remember actually being scared having to battle my way through Pokemon Tower. That song really does a number on you. And not only that, but in universe, right? Up until that point, when Pokemon are hurt, they just pass out. They faint. You take them to the Poke Center. They are, well, woken up. I can say revived, right? Because technically they're still alive. They're just sleeping. They fainted. But then suddenly you find out that yes, Pokemon death exists in this universe. It makes you think, what happened for these Pokemon to die? I've been fighting with these things for hours up until this point, and nothing happened. So is there something more sinister that goes on in this world? There's something else, some other kind of Pokemon battles that are going on that are killing Pokemon, some kind of satanic ritual going on up in this beast? Why are they dying all of a sudden? I guess to quote Pokemon itself, that atmosphere was super effective. And that's why to this day, the Lavender Town Syndrome creepypasta is one of my all-time favorites.
Interestingly, and I have no idea whether or not this has any connection to the Lavender Town Syndrome myth or not, but in Pokemon Gold, Silver, and Crystal, the Lavender Town theme song had been changed to be way more happier and upbeat. Check it out. Anyway, if you like this video, go check out Izzy's channel. I'll see you next time.